Hello, everybody. How's it going? Thank you for attending. My name is Tschetter, and I want to talk to you about a problem that actually has, as far as I'm concerned, only gotten worse instead of better. We've had passwords for forever, for a very long time, and focus of today is to actually kind of echo some of the things that we heard this morning during the keynote, that we need to take a very pragmatic approach to security. We need to start thinking about the fundamentals, and we need to stop blaming humans for everything, because we like to do that, and it's not really fair to carbon-based life forms. So, gonna go through just a quick intro about myself. We're gonna talk about 4,000 years of history very briefly. We'll talk about past 20 years today, and then I want to give some recommendations about what I think we need to do. And if you have any feedback for me, we'll try and leave some time at the end. Happy to take questions. And if you catch me outside of this room and you want to tell me I'm wrong, love to discuss it with you. I love talking about this stuff. So I've been a security architect. I was hands-on keyboard implementing security technologies. I did sales for a little while. I did technology strategy. I was a product manager. I've been doing ecosystem integration. I can't decide what I want to be when I grow up, so I just keep doing stuff. But I've been doing IT security for more than 20 years and focused on identity for the past 10. So I really am focused on human identity. I do think that the focus on non-human identity that you've seen recently is very critical as well. But my focus is really on human identity and making sure that humans have a good experience with security. All right. So let's talk about the invention of secrets and the invention of something that everyone can see but not everyone understands. Going back 4,000 years, there are still things that we haven't deciphered. There are hieroglyphs and other things. We still don't know what they mean. We deciphered everything around it, but there's items that have correlation to other items that you need a key to understand. There's something you need to know or some correlation you need to have. And this is something that's publicly visible to everyone, but only a certain set of people understand it. Jump forward only 2,000 years ago. Caesar cipher is probably one of the more well-known ciphers, frequently talked about. But pretty straightforward. It works really well when people aren't literate. If they don't know the alphabet, if they can't simply rotate the characters in their head. Quite honestly, that's the secret to it. But it worked very well, and it worked very well for about 1,600 years. Then the Vigenère cipher came out. This is the first cipher that actually had a key. It had something more than just rotate the alphabet. You had to have an XOR. You had to have some other value that you could match it with. And this was actually the first example of like a decryption key. And this, was a full 500 years ago. Now, it wasn't until the 1900s that we started seeing mechanical encryption. For those that like history, I like the last 100 years of history in particular. I think it's very interesting. But World War I, we really started to see hardware-based encryption come into play. And that was, again, 100 years ago. It took us another 60 years to get to digital. And the first real commonly accepted encryption was Lucifer, which was renamed to Triple Des to make it less evil sounding. But same thing. And the goal there was that we've moved into a digital age and we need to protect information now that's not on paper, that's not visible to everybody potentially, but it may be moving across a network or moving between machines. And then I want to call out here. So we had a good run here. We have about 4,000 years on here, and Cisco decided to use a 400-year-old cipher in the 1990s. And nobody noticed until some researchers started poking around. And so Cisco Type 7 encryption, for those that remember the 1990s like I do, if you could get access to a backup file from somebody's Cisco device, you could easily crack their password. You didn't need advanced computers, you didn't need server farms, you could do it on your laptop, it was very easy to do. So we have a 400-year-old encryption algorithm still in use, still in production by a major technology vendor, because what's old is new again. Just a little tangent. And this is the part of the talk where this is really what I want to talk about. The rest of this is just history. But we got to the point in the 1990s where we started shifting away from using the actual password or using the credential to access things, and instead using a token that represents my knowledge or represents trust that I have access to this. Windows NT gave Kerberos to the masses. Kerberos existed well before that, but it wasn't widely adopted, it wasn't easy to use. Microsoft really made it accessible. All right, so 2000s. I've been working in identity and access management for a very long time. I remember SAML when it came out and it was new and exciting, and there was all sorts of talk about SPML and all sorts of other standards that no longer exist. But SAML 1.0 came out, nobody used it. It was really hard to use. It was just a bad spec. It was over-engineered. It supported a bunch of things that nobody cared about, and it just never got adoption. So a few years later, we got SAML 2.0. It was great. Still use it today. It's secure. It's easy. It's XML, unfortunately. That's really the only downside. And this was 20 years ago, and we still are talking about passwords at this conference. Just want to highlight that. 2007, we got OAuth, which was really about authorization, not authentication. And we got OAuth 2.0 in 2012, again, about authorization. Again, many improvements over OAuth 1.0. OAuth 1.0 never really got any adoption outside of Twitter. For those that don't know, if you've ever tried to integrate with Twitter and you had a really bizarre time integrating with it, that's why. And I cannot do a presentation without memes, and XKCD is one of my favorite comics. But all I continue to feel as I've been working through these slides and this presentation is, oh my God, we have another standard. This standard's gonna fix it though, guys. This is the one. We figured it out. When this standard's released and everybody uses it, this problem's gonna go away, and we're gonna be in utopia, and everything's gonna work. Promise. You just wait. It's coming soon. So then we got another standard, OpenID Connect. OpenID Connect is just a subset of OAuth, but focused on authentication. And in 2018, I would argue that federation started to become mainstream. I was working for a company called Okta at that time, and we were taking off. Microsoft was working on Entra ID. Companies like Ping and others, we really embrace this idea. We need federation. Cool. Well, that was 7 years ago, and I'm on this stage today. So, we're here. We have standards. We've had SAML for 20 years. We've had OpenID Connect for 10 years. We've had identity providers adopted in large enterprise for the past 7 years. And so things are probably, they're not fixed. They should be, but they're not. And so this is where my hypothesis kicks in. And this is the pieces I would love to discuss with anybody. But these are some of my opinions. These are some of my observations. I sincerely believe that a lot of this comes down to the explosion of SaaS. And I personally had a better single sign-on experience, a better passwordless experience, a better unified experience 20 years ago with SiteMinder and Active Directory than I do today. Period. My applications are all behind my firewall. I had control over them. I could put agents in front of them, proxies, things like that. But I had a better experience 20 years ago as an end user, as a consumer of these technologies than I have had in the 20 years since. Everyone uses SaaS. If you're not using SaaS, I would actually be very curious to find out how. All right, so federation is best. We all agree. It's great. Tokens, we're not passing credentials around. They're short-lived. But I went and looked. I did some research, and popular identity provider that lists their known integrations has 2,000, which sounds great until you look at there's 30,000 that we know about and recognize, and that's 7%. So if 7% of SaaS vendors support federation, it means 93% don't. And so after 20 years of federation, after 10 years of OIDC, 93% of applications, modern SaaS applications being built today, don't offer this. And this is our fault. I'm talking about us as a community. We're not encouraging people to do these things. We're not making it mandatory. We're not making it expected as consumers. When I look at a consumer application, I don't go, well, they don't support sign-in with Google, so I'm not going to use this application. No, we vote with our wallets, and we say, yeah, I'll use it. I don't care. I'll sign up for another username and password. I want to use your app. So we're not holding anybody accountable. And as a result, everything just keeps getting worse. So why are passwords winning? What is so attractive about passwords? They're very easy. They're very accessible. They don't have any language barriers. They don't have any technology barriers. It doesn't require you to have a FIDO key. It doesn't require you to have a smartphone. It doesn't require you to really understand the workings behind it. And as a software developer, I can put hashed passwords in a database all day long. I don't even have to stand up new infrastructure. I don't have to learn a new service, a new technology. So it's just easy. It's the fastest, easiest path. So that's just what we do. And there's no reason not to. There's no downside to doing it. I don't get punished for not supporting federation. And again, in the research I was doing, I think this was from NordPass, like NordVPN, and they said that they have a 70% increase in passwords in people's vaults between 2021 and 2024. 70%. Partially because people just started using them more, partially because we just have more stuff, more sites, more services, more different IoT devices, more, more social apps, all these different endpoints. And the interesting thing for me actually though is they actually have a business product as well. Many of the business vendors don't publish any stats, but they do. And they said that the average business user has 87 credentials in their vault. And the thing that got me really thinking about is, again, I worked in the identity industry. I don't know if I've ever really run into many companies, if any at all, that had 87 applications federated in their environment. Period, total, across their entire business. That's a big number. But if an average business user sitting at their desk working in finance has 87 credentials, that's a problem we need to talk about. This is a fundamental problem. This isn't some future, oh no, AI is going to destroy us all, which is a different conversation. But this is something that has been a problem for 4,000 years and is a problem that's only getting worse. And I don't know about y'all. I don't have a very good memory anymore. I've been working in IT for a very long time, and it's fried my brain. And I'm not great about remembering passwords. I can remember one, generally. And when I go to generate a new password for an application, if I can't do it with my password manager or something else, I'll use dictionary words. I'm not generating random strings of nonsense. It might be 12 characters. It might be 12, 14, I don't know. I just mash buttons. And a unique site, or a unique password per site, I do this for a living, and I'm going to admit that I don't always do that. So the way I look at this is it has to be automated, it has to be integrated, it has to be part of our workflows for humans, right? It has to be right there. It has to be the easiest thing for me to do is not do it manually. Like, that's the only way that this works. Is I'm lazy, I'm human, and if it's not the simplest path forward, it's not the path I'm going to take. And again, I like memes. And the next time, you know, one of your doctors or your dentist or somebody challenges you, you now have a retort. I really enjoyed this one, and I think it's a fair ask. So this is again me theorizing, but I really believe that static passwords are the problem. Passwords themselves are fine. Something you know, something you have is a password you don't know. It's in a vault. It's great. However, I was proven wrong, or really kind of re-emphasized my thinking on this in 2022 when LastPass got breached. So I was a LastPass customer, and I saw the notification like everyone else, and I went, fuck. Pardon my French. And I did a lot of research on this. I was very curious, and what I found was that LastPass really did everything right. They had really good encryption. They did all sorts of key sharding. They did all sorts of modern things to protect the system, but a developer account got a developer credential got compromised, data got stolen. That data was all encrypted, but it had metadata that wasn't, which made it valuable to know which credentials to attack. Right? I could go after Coinbase credentials. I could go after banking credentials because I knew from the metadata that this was a valuable credential. That was the one fault in the whole thing, is that they made it easy for the attackers to target valuable items. And one of the things I really liked about how they handled it, this was actually from the keynote again this morning, they weren't reactionary. They hired the right people, and their communication never blamed the attackers. It's not their fault, it's ours. We got breached. This is what you need to do. It's not their fault. And I really like that. Following the breach, every single tech rag, the New York Times, everybody was all up in arms about, you, the user, need to go do something about this. And this is the part that drives me crazy. You need to go change 700 passwords. Go do it. That's the best practice. You are responsible for this. If you don't go change 700 passwords, your accounts are all going to get compromised. I didn't change 700 passwords. You didn't change 700 passwords. No one on the planet changed 700 passwords. There's a set of applications that just became lost. Like, I guess that application is just compromised. I assume that account is dead. Some of them were inconsequential, but others were not. There's a ton of your PII in these applications behind those credentials. Even if that application itself, that credential to get into that app, doesn't allow them to do anything other than order pizza, your PII is in there. Your data is in there. That's interesting information that could be used to fish, it could be used for other things. Like, it's not just about the fact that they could get into that app, it's what that app contained that we didn't really take into consideration, or at least I didn't. And I've given this talk 3 times. I've had people accuse me of being dramatic, that I'm just being overly reactionary, and I'm just a security guy that says the world is falling and the sky's falling and everything's going to explode. And I don't agree with that, because in May of this year, somebody put together a password dump and put it on some public forums. It contained 184 million password combinations. And for those that have been paying attention to AI, this is actually really interesting data for an AI. because I can now teach an AI what passwords look like. And if one thing that AI is good at is recognizing patterns. If you feed this data set through an AI, it spits out really, really good passwords that people would use. And if you can feed it demographic data, if you can give it context, it can do a really good job of guessing what you're going to use. This is, it's difficult to do at scale. You're not going to feed 184 million credentials into an AI. But if you start grouping them by user, grouping them by demographic, grouping them by region, by country, by language, start to produce some very interesting results. So, my assertion is two things. One, the fact that we keep losing passwords all the time. There's a breach every week. And we still haven't addressed password reuse. We still haven't addressed the fact that humans are lazy and we don't always follow best practices. So, an equivalent event to the LastPass breach in 2022 happens every week. That's just now the state of the world. That's just the world we live in every day, is that there is an equivalent breach every week. And we need to plan for that. We need to, this isn't like doom and gloom. This is something that we just need to recognize that we have to address. We need to take action. We need to make investments to address this risk. But risk reduction, harm reduction. So, for those that weren't paying attention, here's the TLDR. We are asking humans too much. We expect too much from humans. We expect you to come up with good passwords. We expect you to change them. We expect you to have the MFA turned on. When something happens, it's your fault and you need to go clean it up. That needs to change. Especially for those of you that work in an enterprise setting, you can't expect your users to be responsible for this stuff. As said during the keynote this morning, the users aren't stupid. They're not lazy. They're just busy. They're trying to do their job. And guess what? Password management is not on their job description. It never was. That's not what they're paid to do. And it's our responsibility as security practitioners to make this better. We haven't been investing properly in automation here. I think there's some good intentions around some of the standards. There was a standard proposed called Fast Federation. Make federation just one click, super easy. Never really got any traction. There's been some talk about making password change more standardized. Hasn't really got any traction. I participated in the OpenID working group for shared signals in events, now known as the Shared Signals Framework. And one of the things there is like notifying people when passwords get changed, or when there's weird logins, like, hey, maybe this account's compromised. Okay. Communication, sharing, that's great, but that's not going to happen quickly, and if it moves as fast as SAML, it's only 20 years from now before we get 7% adoption. So, like, we'll be pretty good in about 20 years. We'll have about 7% coverage, and that'll be solid. And with the LastPass breach, everything breaks. There is no encryption that cannot be broken. It's just a matter of resources. But resources being time, resources being compute. And for the LastPass breach, because the metadata was visible, they could target valuable things. They were never spending compute on accounts that wouldn't pay out, which is a business decision. These are groups operating as businesses. They have payroll, they have HR, they have support. They're spending compute, they're renting video cards to crack these credentials, and that costs money. So they're going to make sure they're trying to get a return on their investment. Better encryption? Yes, absolutely. If you're still using triple DES from 1970 or Visionaire cipher from 500 years ago, I would encourage you to change. There's some modern ciphers like ecliptic curve that, did I say ecliptic curve? Did you guys hear? Okay. Elliptic curve in cryptography that are quote unquote quantum resistant. Quantum compute is going to be a real risk of security over the next decade. And let's not be Cisco. Let's not pretend we have 400 years before encryption will get broken. So these are my call to action for everyone here. Don't send 187 emails when a password breach happens. The next last pass, which I said happens every week, don't just send me an email and say, hey, you need to change your password. Like, don't make it my responsibility. Force me to change it the next time I sign in or anybody signs in, right? Make it go back to my email or my phone or something else, right? Proactively get ahead of these things. And the way I look at things like this is, my mom, if she goes to the page and it says you have to sign in with your email address, she's going to be like, oh, okay. But if you ask her to change her password and she's going to use the same password she used last time, and if you tell her she can't use her old password, she's going to increment the number by 1, and then that's going to be the entire process. So let's make this something that, like, hey, we know that your password is compromised. We're making it easier for you. We're going to take care of you, that if an attacker tries to break into your account with that credential, they're going to have to go through some other factor, some other challenge to prove that it's really them, really you. The thing that concerns me the most about this presentation is that people in this room are going, oh my God, yeah, there's like 5 service accounts that are Active Directory administrators that I got to protect. This is not about 5 accounts. This isn't about your IGA report for privileged access management. This is about the hundreds of applications in your environment today that you use both personally and professionally that depend on credential-based auth. Use MFA, absolutely, but you also need to pay attention to the passwords. And then don't wait for the next LastPass news cycle where everybody's like freaking out because there was a breach. This happens every day. You can subscribe to sites like Have I Been Pwned or whatever for notifications. Honestly, I wouldn't bother because you'll just get emails all the time. Honestly, if anybody has had an online identity for a very long time using the same email address, I would encourage you to go put it in one of those sites and see how many times it appears. I think one of my email addresses shows up in like 47 breaches. I've had it for 20 years, but that's a lot of breaches. So, how do we get there? Start cataloging things, and this is hard. This is shadow IT problem. This is business applications that IT has no visibility to or need to know. These are finance applications. These are like systems that traditionally have been out of scope, or systems that we just kind of knew about but didn't want to deal with. I'll put it that way. There's a lot of those. Look through your technology catalog. Can you federate any of these apps? Let's get rid of one password in one more place. Let's federate it. It's been 20 years. Let's federate it. It'll be great. Better user experience. Fewer help desk calls. Win-win all around. And then if there is a way to enforce multi-factor authentication, you should always turn that on. Now, this will create user friction. But at least if the password, or not if, but when the password is compromised, the attacker doesn't get immediate access. If you can enforce MFA, it will create help desk calls, it will create user friction, it will create frustration. I have another app on my phone, another text message, another phone call. I know why I get all these things, and I hate it. It drives me crazy. Because I'm burned out on this whole constant re-authentication thing, but I totally know why it's there. But for somebody like, again, I love to use my mom as a reference. She didn't grow up with any of this. She doesn't understand any of this. I can't imagine how she feels about it if I'm burned out by it. Federate, federate, federate. I'm a huge fan of standards. I think they're great. I think they are useful. They're not always the easiest path. They often are the right path. And then if there's no federation, look for automation endpoints. Are there APIs? Can you upload a CSV file? Is there a CLI? Is there a third party that built an integration? Do you have a workflow engine? Do you have an automation platform? Do you have a vendor that has these integrations? Look for those easy buttons. Look for shortcuts. Rotate your credentials proactively. Don't assume that the next news cycle is going to be the one that you have to go change it. Rotate a password every 30 days, just by default. And this also does something that I think is super critical. By rotating passwords every 30 days or 60 days, whatever makes sense for your business, you know that that account still exists. You know the account still works. You know the app is still online. Like, how many dead items exist in your password vaults today? That services that went away 10 years ago. We don't do a good job of cleaning this up, and then it just gets harder and harder to audit it, because now I've got more and more stuff to sift through. Train your users to depend on automation. I think, I think this is one of those things that, okay, so I'm gonna tell a story. For those of you who know me, I might be a little bit of an internet troll, and I like to mess with people. I'm a reformed internet troll. And I decided one day to fish my boss. I found out one of our corporate domains, that was very similar to our corporate domain, was not purchased by us. And for the low, low price of $9.99, I can go buy that domain and make a phishing site. So I did. And I made a phishing email, and then I sent it to my boss, who's the CEO. And he's the CEO of a security company. And he's been working in security for a long time. And I sat and watched my console waiting for a click-through on my link. And I got one. And I sent the email from the fake domain. I sent him to a fake copy of our identity provider's login site that was actually proxied through evil Nginx. So if he had put in correct credentials, it would have proxied through and I would have got a session cookie. That was my goal. And he went to the page, and I was monitoring the traffic, and I saw him type in his username, and I saw him type in the first 2 characters of his password, and he stopped. And then he didn't continue, and then I started worried he was going to contact our security team, and then he'd be mad at me. So I slacked him, and I said, hey, that was me, and yes, that was a phishing site. And he's like, you fucker. I think that was a direct quote. That was his words, not mine. I apologize. And I asked him, I said, why didn't it work? And he said, well, because it didn't fill in for me automatically. Why did I have to type it in? Laziness saved him from phishing. And I think that reinforced for me, like, so much of this is that if we break the habit of asking everyone to put in their credential 100 different times a day, and they get asked 101st time, and it's a phishing site, and they do it, we can't be mad at them. We can't go, oh, you screwed up. No, it was the 100th time that day that I got asked to do this, and I just did it out of muscle memory. That's ridiculous. We cannot hold anybody accountable for that. What we should do is break these habits, break these mental models that when you get asked the 101st time, you're like, yeah, but normally it just does this for me. Why do I have to do it? Because that 1 second of pause, all it took for him to realize it was a phishing email was 1 second of pause to go, well, I don't want to type in my password. And then he starts looking at the URL, and then he starts looking at the email. But that 1 second of pause is the thing that I think we need to prevent or at least mitigate a lot of the phishing attacks. And we do that by breaking this mental model that you're going to get asked for your password over and over again, just get used to putting it in. That's the mistake we've been making. I didn't get fired yet, but no, he understood where I was coming from and understands that I'm me, and he knew kind of what he was getting into. So that was kind of his fault, not mine. And then make human-centric technology decisions. Think about the humans and all of the decisions that you make. Who's the person at the keyboard? Who's my audience for this? What's their experience going to be like? They don't understand all the security stuff that you do. They don't understand why we need MFA. They don't understand why you're being asked for 10 different passwords on 10 different websites. They shouldn't have to. We need to do a better job of reducing that, but also not blaming, not shaming, not threatening, right? Security awareness training is awesome. You should absolutely do it. It also will not prevent phishing. It doesn't. We've proven it over and over and over again. If any of you have ever run a phishing campaign, through PhishMe or whatever site you use, people will fail it every time. Every single time. Doesn't matter. You can make them go through the training again. You know what? They're going to fail it again. Because it's the 100th time today that they got another email and they were told to do something and they just went and did it. We have got, as an industry, to pay attention to this, treat security as a human problem, treat humans fairly, give them better tools, give them better experiences, and ultimately, maybe passwords will go away someday. Probably not. Thank you. Any questions? The question was, how does that correlate with the NIST guidance about setting one really good password and then not forcing rotation? Correct? It's better. That's a better path than having 100 passwords that I have to manage. The reality is, I don't think there's any human alive that only has one password and will ever have only one password. So, ideally, that would be amazing if we could get to that situation. And yes, password managers can help with some of that. But the reality is that I only may have to know one, but I still have 200 passwords. Right? I only have to remember one. That's great. But the reality is that I still have 200. Those 200 still have to change. Those 200 still have to be managed. I need to pay attention to those. They're going to get breached. What are we doing about that? So from a philosophical, yeah, absolutely, I agree, we should. But man, what about everything else? I saw you in the back. Yeah. The question is, how much falls to the developers, right? The developers are responsible for building applications that support these things. And there's auth as a service. There's lots of SDKs and libraries now as well for many languages, from Node to Python to whatever you like, Rust. If you're writing authentication from scratch, you're doing it wrong. Period. End of statement. There's great tools out there. Anyone who's ever tried to invent their own encryption failed. Encryption is only successful when it's public, audited, visible, subject to scrutiny. Cisco is guilty of that as well. Actually wrote their own encryption that was broken repeatedly. You're not smarter than the rest of the industry. So yeah, use the tools available to you. If you want to use a SaaS provider, great. If you want to use an open source solution, great. I would encourage you to use popular open source solutions that are under continuous maintenance, have an active community around them, because you could easily end up in a situation where you're using an abandoned tool that does have vulnerabilities, and that's not great. But there's great modules for Nginx. There's great modules for Caddy. I am a big fan of Caddy as a front-end proxy. It supports OpenID Connect with 5 clicks and a couple lines of code. So, back there. Does token theft take a role in or a consideration in SSO? The way I look at token theft, if your endpoint or your network is compromised to the point where you're losing tokens, you're fucked. There's no coming back from that. One of the recent things that came out was that the newer InfoStealer malware is all focused on cookies, no longer focused on credentials. They'd much rather wait for you to sign into the site and then get your cookie, because bot detection already happened, MFA already happened, device trust already happened. All of the checks are at the front door. And that's another failure. That's a different talk. But there's another failure in the security community where we put all of the verification at the very, very front door, and after you get in, it's just open. So I would be more concerned about cookie theft, session theft, than I would about token theft, because the tokens are only good for 5 minutes. If they can steal it that fast and use it, you're done. You're done. Why do I feel about modern passwordless solutions and why don't more people use them? Passkeys are super cool. I love passkeys. I love FIDO. I love sign-in with Google. I think sign-in with Apple, sign-in with Microsoft are fantastic tools. These are companies that spend billions of dollars a year on security to protect my account. Cool. I'm going to go sign into other stuff with that account that has billions of dollars worth of security behind it. I attended a Microsoft event a few weeks back, and Microsoft has the equivalent of 35,000 FTEs working on security right now after the breach they had last year. 35,000 FTEs. Who here has 35,000 people on their security team? Nobody? Oh. You work at Microsoft? Amazon. Okay, so Amazon and Microsoft have 35,000 people on their security team. I don't think anyone else does. Anyone else? No? Okay. So yeah, I think you should absolutely not create another password in another system if you don't have to. Right? If there's an application that you can sign into with social auth, I think you should. Now, there is privacy concerns there. You're potentially sharing data with them that allows them to correlate ads and other things. It's not always a perfect solution, but it is, for the purposes of this talk, better. Because it's one fewer credential that has to be rotated, that it has to be managed, that has to be cataloged, all of those things. So if available, yes, use passkeys, use FIDO, sign in with Google, whatever you got. But it's not a perfect solution either. Sure. So the question was, have I seen companies have success adopting FIDO? And then the second part is, how do you get FIDO adoption then with applications that don't currently support it? Yes, FIDO adoption, WebAuthn in particular, CTAP2, has been pretty successful. The Face ID on your phone, Touch ID on your phone is WebAuthn. We use it all every day. My mom uses it. She doesn't know she's using it, but she uses it. She loves it. because she doesn't have to type in anything. So, like, yeah, super awesome. The fact that Microsoft, Apple, and Google are working together on some of these things is great. They're actually collaborating. The downside is, to your point, there's a lot of applications that don't support it. And so what we end up having to do is we put it at the control point, the identity provider, generally speaking, and we federate to all the applications, and then you get a couple of benefits out of that. One, my device trust, my user authentication, my network, network restrictions, any of that stuff is all centralized in one place. I only have one policy to manage, much easier to audit, much easier to inspect, but 7% of my applications are federated. If you are a big company, hint, hint, Amazon, you can put pressure on vendors. And you don't have to be the size of Amazon to do that. But if you are using enterprise software that does not support federation, and you're paying them hundreds of thousands of dollars, you should demand that they support federation. I was a product manager, and you know what happens when a sales guy says, this company spends $500,000 with us and they want federation? The product manager goes, okay. Because if they say no, they have to explain why this $500,000 customer is angry. They don't want to do that. So yes, vote with your wallet, use your contracts to do that kind of stuff. That'll benefit everybody, right? That's one of those things where if multiple customers do that across multiple products in multiple industries, we'll get above 7%. But to this point, most SaaS companies don't have to support it because their customers are still using their product without it. Simple as that. And we're allowing that, right? We're making exceptions for the business to use this tool because they need it. Well, okay, that's true. We do have to make those exceptions, but it means we're still in the same boat that we were 4,000 years ago. Anything else? Oh, lights. You're like lights. That's very bright. SSO tax. I love SSO tax. If you are a vendor in this room and you charge people for federation, please don't. Please stop. Yes, it's cool that you can charge for an enterprise plan and try and get some more money out of them, but please don't. Charge for other things. Charge for more valuable things that differentiate your product. Single sign-on should not be a product differentiator. That's terrifying. The fact that that is a product differentiator is just reflective of how screwed up we are in the identity access management industry. Like, that's ridiculous. So SSO tax, I love the fact that somebody built a wall of shame for vendors, not people, because vendors aren't people. Because it is very important for us to say, like, these companies are intentionally handicapping security in the interest of trying to force you to pay more money, which I think is just a bad practice broadly, and I think we should be shaming them for that. It is really bright. You are like, all right, well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. If you have any comments, feedback, whatever, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Grab me around the conference. I'll be here today and tomorrow. And thank you for attending.